This fourth quarter, the very first fourth quarter, we thought we would take the easy option of redrafting probably the greatest and deepest NHL draft in history, which is, of course, the 2003 NHL draft. I mean, you know, it's hard to pick where you start. There are a ton of stacked drafts. This one probably takes the cake because, you know, so look, I'll just read 17th overall pick, Zach Parise. So James and I are going to pick, we're not going to redraft. Yeah, we're not going to redraft the whole draft because we've already bored you for an hour and something. We're not going to keep you here for another 9 rounds of a draft. Or we could. No. So we're going to...
With the 137th pick. All these
Wow. People, lock in and find yourselves some drinks because we are getting hot and heavy with 9 rounds of the 2003 NHL draft coming up now. No, we are going to talk about a couple of the players. We will probably go to 5. Do you want to go? I've got up to 7. I've got my top 7. I can stop at 5.
I probably have like 18 guys on this list, but let's go 5.
Yeah,
let's go 5.
We'll do 5. So
and then we'll give like honorable mentions.
So I will start by reading out the original top 5 picks. So you get an idea of where we're going. So first overall pick 2003 was Marc-Andre Fleury to Pittsburgh. At 2, you had Eric Saul to Carolina. 3 was Nathan Horton to Florida. 4 was Nikolai Zverev to Columbus. And 5 was Thomas Vanek to Buffalo. So that's the original top 5 taken. Now, a couple notable names, because we'll get the honorable mentions out of him. And actually, these guys weren't even in my top 10 when I was looking at it. Ryan Kessler, Mike Richards, Zach Parise.
Is Parise not in your top 10?
No, he's not. He's not. Is that interesting. I thought about it. Parise was very close. Parise was above Dustin Brown. I'll give him that. Parise actually went.
Dustin Brown's not even on my top 15.
Well, no, I know. I'm just saying that Parise went 17th overall. Dustin Brown went 13th overall. But Parise is not in my top 10. Is he in your top 10?
Maybe he's like 11.
Okay.
10,
is
11.
Is he above or under? There. Is he above or under Jeff Carter?
I don't have a ranking right now. I just have my top 11 guys, and Parise's on that list.
So he's okay. If you had to pick, would you put Parise above Jeff Carter as an honorable mention?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I only ask the best of the questions.
I don't know. Like at their peak, who was more dominant of a player? I've got a clear pick. Stanley Cups, but I think Parise was the best player on his team. Like Carter
I've got a clear pick for if I had to pick between the two of them. You got to pick Jeff Carter. In his prime, you wouldn't want there was when he was playing in LA, there were few goal scorers who were more dynamic and rest assured would find you that goal than Jeff Carter. And I think his time on the Kings on the run to the cup epitomized that, where he was scoring left, right, and center.
Yeah, but he was I guess he was protected in LA in the sense that they had so many other weapons that he was kind of their third option kind of thing. Parise has always been the guy on his team, right? Like, I mean,
also true.
Like when Kovalchuk left, actually, no, I think they left the same summer. Did they? Kovalchuk and Parise? I could be wrong on that. I can't remember. If in the comments, let me know. I could be wrong on that. But yeah. I remember like Parise. Okay. We'll agree to disagree. I can't decide. I really can't.
Okay. What about Brent Seabrook? Is he an honorable mention for you, or is
he's an honorable mention? He didn't. Yeah. I think there's just better options when it comes to defense. Like you got 4 elite guys ahead of him. So
okay, so let's. How do we want?
One
do
of them's in my top 5.
do you want to do this?
You give your fifth guy. I'll give my fifth guy.
Okay.
And we'll work down to one.
This is controversial.
Okay.
Number
five.
Number 5, Brent Burns.
Is that controversial?
Well, I don't know. It's maybe just stirring the pot to try and get people to think it's controversial. I think you have to have Brent Burns in that top 5, not only for how good he was throughout the course of his career, but also his ability to play different positions of defense. All the times he's spent at right wing. I know that whenever we played fantasy hockey, Brent Burns was one of the highest picks because he was listed as a D and a right wing.
Yeah.
But I just think, if you want to base it on hockey, including ability and his marketing power, all of the above, whatever it is, Brent Burns is a great player to have on your team. He's my number 5.
He didn't make my top 5 only because in my sense, like he took a lot longer than the other guys to actually make an impact in the NHL.
Okay, fair enough.
This is a 2003 draft and no one knew who Brent Burns was till probably 2010. Right. Yeah. So from that perspective, like he was good in Minnesota, but then he became great in San Jose. I think all the other guys I've listed have been elite players since pretty much their inception into the NHL.
Okay. So hit me. Number 5.
Number 5, I have Ryan Getzlaf.
Oof.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's got the cup, and he was a baby when he got the cup because that was him and Perry were both kids when they came in for that playoff run. But I think he's been the number 1 center on up until pretty much last season and the season before. Anaheim was perennially a dominant team.
Yeah.
So he's been the number 1 center on a great team for over a decade. He's been a two-way force. He's not a 100-point guy, but he's a dominant offensive player. So Ryan Getzlaf is being my 5th guy from this draft.
Okay. Who's your number 4?
Oh, rolling into next, number 4. Oh, it would be Eric Staal.
Oh, okay.
Reasoning 4 is that he has more points than anyone else from this draft class.
Correct.
He's got a Stanley Cup, so check mark there.
Yep.
And he was the best player on Carolina. I would say the only thing that maybe brings him down from being like a top 3 guy is the fact that for the past few years he hasn't been like an elite player. He's kind of mellowed out into kind of being just a kind of a top 6 forward, but not an elite player. But I think definitely ever since he came into the league for probably a decade, he was an elite player, an elite number 1 two-way center who could put up points and score.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my number 4.
My number 4 is also Eric Staal. And
anything to add?
No, I really I thought he might be. I wrestled with him maybe being number 3. But I just think my 1 is like my 1, 2, 3. Wait, no. Yeah, Eric Staal, number 4.
Okay, on to your number 3. Who do you got? Who do you got 3? I wonder if we'll have the same top 3, or if it'll actually change.
No, we don't. I
know we share one guy in our top 3. But the other 2 guys are a little up for interpretation.
My number 3 is Ryan Getzlaf.
Oh wow! Okay, so you had him higher than I did. Fair enough.
I think for all of the reasons you mentioned, but the fact that he's had to do it for so long and he's continued his style of, even though as he's aged and his ability might have changed, his style of play hasn't. He's been, the epitome of, what you're going to get out of him. Every single time he gets on the ice, what he's going to give you and how he's going to play and how he's going to lead his team. And I think that consistency is worth its weight in gold.
Fair enough.
Who's your 3?
I wrestled with 3. So I think my top 3 guys, I kind of wrestled on where to kind of put them, but at 3 I settled with Shea Weber.
Okay. Yeah.
He's never won a Norris.
Yeah.
But I think he's been on the short list of best defensemen in the league for a decade.
Yes.
And just he was the guy for a bit as well, even though he didn't win the Norris. So I think just what he brings and the fact that he's still a top number 1 defenseman on the Montreal Canadiens. It just shows you how unique of a player he was. His size, his speed, his skill, and just his shot as well. Just I remember at that 2010 Olympics when he actually shot the puck and it went through the net.
Yeah, and yeah, for all of those reasons, is why I have Shea Weber at number 2.
Oh, we're doing the quick transition. Okay, number 2 for Shea Weber for you.
Yeah, I think that, other notable defensemen in the draft, your Ryan Suter, your Brent Seabrook, Brent Burns, there are loads of really good defensemen in this draft. Dion Phaneuf, if you want to talk about Dion at a time.
Dion.
Yeah, at a time Dion was really, really good. I just think Shea Weber has been so good for so long. And he went from a team in Nashville where he was a go-to guy, but didn't have to be a go-to guy, and still played incredibly well. And he's gone to a team in Montreal where they needed him to be that number 1 guy. And he has stepped up and been consistently good, even through injury. He's just, and I think actually he's probably a little hard done by the fact he hasn't won an Norris, because I think he's probably deserving of a Norris.
Oh, it's a travesty, like how he hasn't won one, and he won't win one going forward.
And he won't. Yeah, exactly. And it's sad because he's never gonna win one again.
But I still think he'll be like, at the end of the day, I think when the Hockey Hall of Fame guys are thinking, I still don't know how you're like, he wasn't the best at his position for upwards of a decade, and he wasn't in that conversation. So I think even though he doesn't have a Norris, I don't think that's going to hurt his Hall of Fame chances. So I think it's just more kind of sad for him personally, but I'm sure he'd much rather have the team success. What's funny about this though is that because you said Shea Weber at 2, that means that a guy who I have in my top 2 isn't even on your top 5.
Are you going to pick Pavelski?
My number 2 is the only guy here that I can remember, at least. I think, let me just check. He's the only guy on this list who's got a heart. Oh
my God, Brian Boyle.
No, my number 2 is Corey Perry. My number 2 is Corey Perry.
So,
I mean, he has a heart, which I mean goes. He's got a heart. He's got a Stanley Cup.
He's got 2 hearts.
That's very fun. But back to Corey Perry.
Yes.
I debated between him and Weber at 2-3. But I think when you look at Corey Perry was just an absolute monster for the first decade of his career. He's slowed a bit. He's slowed a bit now because I think the style that he played and the injuries that he went through. But even now, like anyone who watched the playoffs saw that he's still got some spark left for Dallas. So
yes.
Corey Perry's my number 2.
For the record,
plus he also wins everything. He's won everything. So
for the record, he's 6. I know we owned you. He was my 6. Yeah, okay. He was my 6. And
he's my number 2.
And well, evidently, I
do love number 2. Just to tell you,
I do love Corey Perry, and I was really hoping. Actually, I thought when before he signed for Dallas, I was really hoping that he would come to Toronto because I thought that's exactly the kind of player the Leafs could have used. Anyway,
It was either him or
obviously.
Simmons. I think they were both kind of in the same kind of
Yeah,
boat.
yeah. Anyway, I think that I hope. Well, I don't know. My number one is Patrice Bergeron. I think it. I can't think. If you want a player who could fit into that any team would ask for right now, or in the last, 15 years, Patrice Bergeron is the guy you would ask for on your team. And if you want a player who can do it all, who brings skill, a bit less speed now when he's older, but skill, speed, a tough, he's not a fighter, but he's tough and he's mostly injury. I want, not immune, but resistant. He's played a ton. He's sent us debatably the best line or the second best line in hockey at this moment. He's won a cup. He's won the Olympics. He's won almost everything. And he's never in the penalty box.
So he's the guy killing penalties.
Yeah, I know, but the point being, like, he doesn't hurt your team. He cannot, all of the other players.
That should be our slogan. Patrice Bergeron does not hurt your team.
Yeah. So that's, I can't think of, if you want a hockey player, you want a guy who's always going to be on the ice and always helping you. Can't find a better player in this draft than Patrice Bergeron helping you.
Yeah. For all those reasons, I totally agree. He was my number one too. He's a winner. He can kind of do everything. He's not the most offensively gifted out of kind of the options that were kind of laid out in this 2003 draft, but I think his ability to play with talent makes a difference. The fact that he can play with elite level talent and still kind of produce is big. For him personally, the fact that he's a Boston Bruin and I don't hate him says even a lot more, because Absolutely. I pretty much hate every Boston Bruin except for him.
Yep.
So I think from my perspective, at least, there's a lot of mutual respect there.
Mm-hmm.
Not mutual. I'd hope that he respects me one day, but
hey,
that there's a lot of respect.
Yes, Patrice, please exactly. Show James some love.
Yeah, but no, I just think he's, the best two-way center of his generation. There's nothing that he can't do, and the fact that even like for the next Olympics, his name is already kind of being put onto the team, even though he's going to be 36 years old. Just says even more about kind of what people still think about him.
Absolutely.
So yeah, from that perspective, we agree on number one, that Patrice Bergeron is kind of the best player from that draft, even though it did take him a few years to kind of maybe mold his game out. It would have made a lot of sense. Like a 1-2-3 punch of a Crosby, Malkin, and Bergeron if they had taken him first.
Yeah, I mean, well, that would have, if we're talking about dynasties, that would have been,
or even a Perry playing with Crosby and Malkin during his heyday.
Yeah, but Marc-Andre Fleury did a lot of good stuff for Pittsburgh. I don't think you can, it's hard to, it's always a risk taking a goalie first, just because goalies are goalies. And you're getting a player at 18 when loads of goalies don't hit their primes until much, much later in their careers. So it's,
look at Markstrom. He's 30 and he just hit his prime.
Yeah, like it's a risk.
A long game.
It's a big risk. I don't think Pittsburgh regret picking Fleury because
no.
He backstopped them to a cup, and there's disagreements about how much not really disagreements, because Matt Murray won the other ones. But
he helped in those playoff runs, to be fair, and he kept him really fresh.
And Fleury with Vegas was crucial in their run.
He took them to a cup finals first year. So
I don't think you can fault Pittsburgh for taking Fleury, although absolutely without a doubt Bergeron is number one.
A little side question though. Is Fleury a Hall of Famer to you? Because he's never won a Vezina. He's never had individual awards. Is he a Hall of Famer to you? He's got 3 cups, though he was only the starting goaltender for 1. He's got a gold medal, but he was sitting in the rafters because he was the 3rd goaltender on that 2010 team. Like he's got a lot of awards. A lot of them were team attributed. Right? And if you don't have the personal awards to go along with it, and all you have in your repertoire is team awards, although amazing, you can look at these teams and be like,
I think if you look at him from a stat position, just based on stats, you'd think, oh yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. But I think if you actually hold what the Hall of Fame means, if you're talking about the Hall of Fame, it's not just guys who have done well on teams. You have to be talking about the best of the best of their generations, across a whole period, and generational talents. Because otherwise the Hall of Fame is just like, oh yeah, really good players will get into the Hall of Fame. That's not what I think the Hall of Fame should be. It should be rare. It should be a real
It should be players that left a mark on the game. Correct.
So, okay, well, so out of your top 5, do you have a Hall of Famer in your top 5?
Patrice Bergeron's a Hall of Famer.
Well, yeah. That was the only... But
Corey Perry's a Hall of Famer.
Okay.
I mean, he's won everything. He's got a heart. He's got the individual awards. He's got the team awards. He was consistently one of the top goal scorers in the league for a decade.
Okay.
Like Corey Perry and Jeff Carter. Jeff Carter, I don't think yet is a Hall of Famer. But I mean, those 2 guys have won everything. They've won everything. I think Shea Weber's a Hall of Famer because I think he was the best. I think he did change the game a bit.
Yeah.
Getzlaf and Stahl have to be right there.
They're right on the cusp.
Cusp.
It really depends on when they retire and just what other people have done. Depends on I don't think they can do much more to put themselves in contention.
But 2 guys who changed the way we thought of the position being played are 2 guys, are Brett Burns and Dustin Byfuglien.
Absolutely.
I mean, those are 2 guys who were 6'5" guys playing defense who skated like forwards.
And
just
scored like
people
forwards.
and scored like forwards, and kind of, I would say those guys, like Byfuglien, changed the way we thought about kind of guys that size.
Yeah, well, because everyone thought they were just massive sticks.
Who would ever think a guy of that size and that weight could move and play the game like he did?
Yeah, you raise a good point.
Like I don't think he'll be a Hall of Famer at the end of the day because I think his career is done now. We can kind of see his career in aggregate and kind of look at all of it right now. And I don't think it's a Hall of Fame career, but I think he definitely left his mark on the game for sure. So,
well, there you have it, folks.